Yeah, I've got time.
Welcome back to the 20-Minute Gamer channel, everybody. We are taking a moment today to do a little bit of a deep dive into Aliens Fireteam Elite Year 1. How did it age? How were the updates? Has this been a success of the franchise? Now, for comparison's sake, I will be using World War Z in a few examples, as it does seem to be one of the better games by comparison. I believe World War Z has built a pretty good definition of arcade horde shooter, so I will be comparing a couple of things between those two games. I'll also be dropping that second video in the next 2 weeks regarding the pathogen giveaway, so please stay tuned in for that as well. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. The likes tell me you enjoy what I'm putting out. The subscriptions help the channel grow. And of course the comments, they allow me to interact with you. So with those disclosures in place, let's go ahead and jump in. So what is it? Well, Aliens Fireteam Elite is going to be best characterized as an arcade horde shooter. So similar to Killing Floor 2, Left 4 Dead, World War Z, just to name a couple. There are mission objectives, but your combat is filtered through in waves of Xenos that require you to thin out before you're able to progress. I'm going to go ahead and open this up with gameplay. Now, there's no denying it. Fireteam Elite provides some very, very gripping gameplay.
Give me a second.
From normal difficulty up to extreme, each scale up offers multiple
We can kick it after we grab him.
You want to fight swarms of Xenos? Well, this is the perfect place to do it. Mission 1 opens up in a very, very nostalgic setting. You're pulled into LV-895, an image reminiscent of Hadley's Hope. 3 Marines arrive on site to recon the area, and you get an idea of what's going on. The motion detector's pinging, pipes are hissing, vents are falling from the ceiling. You want to move down the corridors in formation with your teammates, rifles at the ready.
High speed incoming.
Your first real engagement with the Xenos has you pulling all your firepower forward, only to be met with contact rushing on your 6 o'clock. I was absolutely hooked. The Fireteam Elite is rife with these experiences, and each one is as welcome as the last. Though some of the scenarios do seem to be reused in a way, I found myself unbothered by this. I do only want to rescue so many scientists before I want to be bum rushed by Xenos again, curing my withdrawal of pulse rifles and smart guns, ripping apart those rubbery exoskeletons. I felt as though the game offers some decent replayability as well. As Season 4 opens up here just recently, crossplay has greatly increased the replayability of the game. Slow to come to the game, but definitely needed, crossplay now makes it easier to jump into any mission you want and almost always get someone to play with. Now, due to crossplay, I no longer have the issue of waiting 90 minutes for someone to join a match. And as a 20-minute gamer, I rarely have time to plug away hours into a game at one time. So for me, I felt as though the game really held a fair bit of interest over the past few months regardless. And crossplay has definitely increased my chance to enjoy the missions I want to play
team. The
with
Katanga
people I
Xeno
want to play
Hive
with.
must be destroyed.
Cheers, Cold Iron.
We stop the spread.
Now, as far as the story goes, Cold Iron has also worked to create a pretty unique but familiar story. Aliens Fireteam Elite allows the player a chance to create a Marine serving aboard the UAS Endeavor. Set in 2202, 23 years after the original trilogy, your ship is routed to investigate a distress signal on LV-895. You start out on Katanga Mining Station. After arrival, you begin to notice the presence of xenomorphs. This discovery takes you down a rabbit hole of defective synthetics, waves of Xenos, and yes, even a romance betwixt a scientist and a confused Xeno female.
The woman who... the one it came out of. Her name was Monica.
Now, AFE offers the players a great story that's familiar to what captured our attention so many years ago, but one that also does its best to stand aside and bring forward more recent lore and content. Their team seems to be using subject matter from many aspects of the Aliens universe. From engineers to an alien queen, they seem to want to help in connecting as many dots as they can, and honestly, I hope their process adds to and continues to maintain a place in the Aliens series to come. I want to touch base on leveling up. Aliens Fireteam Elite gives users a really fantastic leveling up process. Cold Iron has created what they call a grid that allows you to build a setup how you want using your class-specific traits. And this is a really important part of the game. It seems like so many games created nowadays just have this specific meta that if you want to remotely enjoy the game, you have to adhere to. The Aliens Fireteam Elite has a type of meta, but it's not dire. It's not really disastrous if you don't use it. For example, you can have someone run a Demolisher who has his grid pumped up into using his heavy weapon. The dude just wants to use the M56 Smart Gun at maximum capabilities. That's great. You can do that. On the same team, another Demolisher can have his rockets amped up as well for maximum damage. The possibilities aren't endless, but there's positive flexibility in building your grid. Cold Iron has done a great job in creating the grid, and I really wish more games would implement this type of system flexibility. I'd also like to include the weapons leveling up process as well. There are numerous attachments and numerous ways to build each weapon up in a way that you're comfortable with. From increasing stability in a really bucky auto rifle to honing in on accuracy for that sniper rifle. The possibilities were carefully crafted and taken into consideration. My last big positive that I want to touch base on, and it's definitely not the least, I think I'm leaving it because it's the one I'm so amped about, is the audio and the environments. Where do I start here? Do I start with that epic, airy, sexy belch of a pulse rifle?
Short bursts.
Or the cold, lifeless, damp, fabricated steel of a mining facility? Cold Iron Studios did an exceptional job with the audio and environments. They are such an integral and important part of the series. Aliens lore can seem ambiguous at times, convoluted even. But while I have enjoyed many of the movies that have been released, I of course have my favorites, mainly Aliens, and Alien 3. The lore has its moments, but I hope there's something that we can all agree on. A pulse rifle needs to sound a certain way, and the environment should give you the flu just by looking at it. The Cold Iron has captured all of this. The pulse rifle is one of the weapons of my youth that I coveted the most. For the first playthrough of the game, the pulse rifle seemed to be all I wanted to use. I was an ultimate badass. The sound, the feel, and it doesn't stop there. The creaks and moans of the facilities, the motion detector beeps, even the aliens squeal as they're shot. I absolutely love every audio aspect of this game. The environment is nothing to scoff at either. Katanga depicts a perfectly deserted facility. Empty. Eerie. Quiet. The vents dropping from maintenance shortfalls, creaking at odd times as well. Katanga pulls you into a jaw-dropping nostalgia of both LV-426 and even the Nostromo. It isn't just the mining facility either. Dropping down to the surface, you're met with flora and fauna similar to the land that time forgot. Old stone structures from the time of the engineers. Massive statues. And of course, alien hive structures as well. Cold Iron Studios, I salute you.
Wow.
History will long revere your courage and sacrifice.
Now let's jump into some of the cons. Unfortunately, every game has those things that, I don't want to say they weigh on you and you wonder why they haven't been fixed, but that may just be the easiest way of identifying what those things are. Now the first one for me is character creation. Now, I do love it when a game is released and the limitations of character creation make it so I can only create characters that look like friends of mine and not me directly. That way, when my Marine is brutally raped by a Prowler, I feel more empowered. Maybe you should have paid me back for lunch, huh, Danny? Joking aside, the character creation is there. It's just not the best. I do hope that down the road they offer additional palettes for this, physically, that is. The outfits are a little controlled and limited, which is just fine. It's the military, there's going to be limitations. As for AFE, there is a fair selection of headgear to differ you from your teammates, and enough of a change in uniforms as well. Sadly, there's almost a better customization of weapons than uniforms in the game, which seems a little bit backwards to me. In the future, I'd like to see the ability added to maybe add flare or patches to the uniforms. I think that that would allow us to further identify ourselves differently from the people we're playing with. Now, this next one has a weird title, but I'm going to break it down. I'm calling it Axis Strengths Allied Weaknesses. So let's talk about it. There's obviously a reason they use runners as the main Xeno to fight in the game, rather than drones or warriors. I 100% get that. However, being such a weaker Xeno, I would imagine they would always be easier to kill. The amount of warriors and drones that Hicks, Hudson, Ripley, and Vasquez hold off in the med lab is astounding, considering how difficult they are in this actual game. Now, there's a balance pass I believe the game still needs for the higher difficulties. There's a level of comfortability in shooters like this that I think Cold Iron is still ironing out. Comparatively, World War Z is still very, very entertaining on the hardest difficulty. Get yourself a crack shot team with great trigger control, and you're headshotting Zeeks, keeping them at bay, really only shitting your pants when a bullet comes on the field. Solo with the AI, you can still enjoy the harder difficulties. Now, I've done insane solo in AFE, so I don't think I'm a crappy player or ineffective, but there's a level of
This is bullshit
on the higher levels that can make the game just not fun. The runner's weak points, I swear, get smaller and tougher. And drones? Forget about it. And synthetics you fight, they're absolute terrors. I'd almost rather fight Xenos. The fact that the Weyland synths are as horrifying and devastating as they are, but our synths aren't allowed to scale with us in difficulty is staggering. Now, I understand and appreciate companies trying to be my mom and force me to play outside with other kids. I want to play by myself. It's easy. Create a vote button on the launch menu. Scale bot difficulty. Yes, no. Boom. Done. Alright, this next section I'm calling Content Burnout. And this is the hard topic, which is why I did save it for last. Where are we with content? Year 1 is coming to a close, and that means we've had our 4 seasons. Season 1, we got the Phalanx, the L-33 Pike, the L-59 minigun, the Type 88 Heavy AR, and the Voldemort laser, the November 79 EVA laser. Season 2, we got Point Defense, the Zvezda plasma rifle, the Microburst, the PPZ-49 Vol, which I love, and the Frontier revolver. Season 3 brought us another class, the Lancer. We got the X1 Fireball, we got the Heavy Pulse Rifle, the X45 Bombard, and the Mark 7 CQB pistol. Season 4 brought us Crossplay.
Thank you, Jesus!
The Scattergun, the Hell, the Sokol, the Misha, and we got a new gameplay mode, Restock Turrets. So that's the dry bit, alright? The devs have clearly taken a vested interest in giving us additional content. They've pushed 12 additional weapons, several attachments which are attainable through Point Defense on Standard and Insane, and in Restock Turrets on Standard and Insane difficulty. 20 plus additional challenge cards, 2 new game modes, plus we also have the Pathogen release coming out as well at the year 1 mark on August 30th. Now, despite community outcry, Cold Iron has stayed true to their word and they have not charged for any seasonal updates, which was their promise. All that DLC has been free. However, Pathogen being its own first standalone portion of the game with additional missions, it's caused a little bit of a upset being that it's paid for DLC. Alright, now with all that out of the way, it is my opinion there is a gap in content and continued interest in the game. I define Burnout as the point in time where playing the game no longer captures your attention, not necessarily that you will not play the game, but you're also a little more interested in that Netflix show playing in the background while playing AFE. Fireteam Elite for me has had periods of Burnout that last for about 2 weeks, and then I'm chomping at the bit to play it a little bit more. There's no real reason that World War Z should be more engaging than Fireteam Elite. They really are quite similar games. However, I've felt as though there is a factor of World War Z that makes it slightly easier to pick up after and during Burnout. I think it simply might be the fact that on the higher difficulties, World War Z remains a little easier to control than AFE.
She's our battalion synthetic. Keep
The
moving
Horde rushes are the mainstay of each of these games, and for that reason, how each of them handle the rushes are up for critique and analysis. Being able to control a Horde in World War Z with headshots and one-shot kills does affect the playability. In Fireteam Elite, not having the ability to control a rush in that way changes the frustration level when playing. It might not be as bad if you could double back in some areas, but this Super Mario Brothers mentality of you've passed this point and can't go back steals away from some of the effectiveness that I feel the Marines will have. There's no way to go back to a hallway, 50 feet even sometimes, to create a choke point on the harder difficulties. Now, we know from the movies and comics that the Marines would think of this and pursue the option to gain fire superiority. When playing with others, I often try to stay in a position where I can keep a door open that otherwise would close and lock on us, allowing the team to create a choke point where we can more easily control the flood of Xenos.
My hope is that they pick up on the fact that
the need for engaging content on titles like this is extremely important. That sounds like a silly statement, but it's not really. When you consider how lazy other developers can be with content based on the game genre or type, it really puts into perspective how important content is for arcade horde shooters. Using a sandbox MMO, Division 2 for example, they have loads of recycled content. It's almost every season is almost the same for Division 2. But it gets tolerated because of the free roam ability and the otherwise randomized and procedurally generated content that the game creates.
I do still love the M56.
That's just some food for thought, Cold Iron.
It's actually become really underpowered, though.
Now, as I look over the past year, I find myself pretty satisfied with where we are now. I think it's easy to say or feel like the developers could always do, quote-unquote, more. Now, I don't know if that's always the case. You know, there's a budget and project schedules for these things. Some of these game modes could be mapped out months or a year in advance, like Pathogen. The devs specifically said Pathogen was in the works the minute that AFE was released to the public. The devs seem pretty active in Discord and online, and they seem very interested in our feedback. This game's gotten a great foundation in many ways, and I feel like it can be built up in a few different directions. We have a ship that's got caution tape and partitions installed. That leads me to believe there's more to see. I can also see some gameplay linked to the CIC that's locked upstairs. There's a deep-rooted fan base for this title and for this universe. There is 100% a lot that can be screwed up here. I think the additional classes they've created work really well. I like the Phalanx, and I really like the Lancer. At my core, I'm a Demolisher or a Gunner. Cold Iron has done a great job of taking time to build the game, and while I'd be interested to see a few gameplay functions take hold,
I'm sorry,
this
but
also
if you
isn't
don't
just
like the
my game. It's
you
your
haven't had
game.
moments like that.
Developers need to take
I
into
think
consideration the
intense
needs of the
difficulty is-
majority of players and the type of feedback they get on that mass scale.
I think intense
I'd say
difficulty is
AFE
just
comfortably
great
lands a 7 out of
moments
10.
like this.
Now, I don't think the game is exclusively a
with this,
20-minute
especially
game
with the
either.
smart gun, man.
Majority of the
I think
missions
it's just-
really take about 40 minutes to finalize.
It's perfect.
Now, inside that 40 minutes, though, there's plenty of great content. There's a few dry or bland moments in the game where there's nothing going on, but
Beautiful.
it picks up pretty quickly. Now, with that being said, though, I still think AFE holds
Eat
a
shit,
role
you
as a
simps.
20-minute game. The whole purpose of a 20-minute game isn't that it happens in 20 minutes. It's that in the short time that you're able to play and experience that game, you have sustainable, enjoyable content. As I've said, we do have a few categories. So, I think AFE just fits in a 40-minute capacity. So, go ahead and take your reward, Cold Iron. I hope you've all enjoyed my year one breakdown of Aliens Fireteam Elite. I have honestly really enjoyed the game over the past year. I have a lot of content to still unlock. And don't get me wrong, it's a great game. It's just not the only game I play. I try to also meet other friends halfway on other games they want to play too. So, thank you for joining me on this today, and remember, please like, comment, subscribe. Drop a comment down below if you think I'm being fair or not. I'd love to talk to you. Also, once again, stay tuned for that pathogen giveaway. Details coming up right in around 2 weeks. Stay frosty. I'll see you out there. Nick out.